You know the story of Jonah and the whale, right? I mean, we all do. Guy runs from God, gets tossed off a boat, swallowed by a giant fish. It's a classic. But what if I told you that story is hiding one of the deepest, most incredible symbolic chains in the entire Bible? Stick with me here, because the story of Jonah's fish is so much more than just a miracle rescue mission. Everything clicks into place with this one quote, right here. Jesus himself says it. He takes this bizarre Old Testament event and makes it the sign for his own death and resurrection. This verse, this is our key. It unlocks a whole series of connections that ripple through history, theology, and, you're going to see, even the very design of our churches. Okay, so before we can really get what Jesus is talking about, we have to rewind. We have to understand what this story meant to the people who heard it first. See, for ancient Israel, Jonah wasn't just some prophet who messed up. He was basically a walking, talking symbol for the entire nation. Now, the Bible presents this as something that really happened. A real guy named Jonah got swallowed by a real big fish. But the meaning of that event went way beyond just one person. It was a living prophecy, a sign of what was coming for all of them. And this is where it gets really interesting. When you put Jonah's journey side by side with Israel's journey as a nation, the parallels are just undeniable. His personal crisis was literally their national drama, just in miniature.
Okay, check this out. Both Jonah and the nation of Israel were disobedient. No question there. Both get cast into the sea. Jonah literally gets thrown into the water, while Israel gets metaphorically thrown into the chaotic sea of the surrounding Gentile nations during their exile. And then, get this, just like God sends a fish to shelter Jonah, God uses the nation of Assyria, the very place Jonah didn't want to go, as this strange, kind of paradoxical refuge for Israel during their captivity. And in the end, just like Jonah was spat out onto dry land, the people of Israel were eventually returned to their own land. Wild, right?
So that's level one. That's the national allegory. And Jonah's original audience would have totally gotten that. But Jesus comes along and says, that's not all there is. You're missing the deeper layer. He points us to a meaning that goes beyond Israel's history and points right at him. All right, this is where the symbolism really kicks into high gear. This is where the story becomes the great sign of the Messiah. Now, to really grasp what Jesus is doing, we need to understand one key idea. It's called typology. It sounds academic, but it's pretty simple. It's the idea that God embeds patterns in history. The Old Testament has these types, real people, real events, that are like foreshadowing for the ultimate reality, the antitype, which is almost always Jesus and what he came to do. So here's the crucial move Jesus makes. He says those 3 days Jonah spent in the fish, that's the type. The reality it was pointing to all along was his own 3 days in the heart of the earth, in the tomb. For Jesus, the belly of the fish is the grave. And what's amazing is, Jesus isn't just pulling this out of thin air. Jonah himself makes the connection. When he's praying from inside the fish, he doesn't say, help, I'm in a fish. He says, I am in the belly of Sheol. That's the Hebrew word for the grave, for the underworld. He literally talks about his life being brought up from corruption. He already understood his experience as a kind of death and resurrection. And once you make that connection, once you see that the fish equals the tomb, it sets off this incredible domino effect. It starts an analogical chain where one symbol unlocks the next, and it leads to a conclusion that is just absolutely stunning. And here we go. This is where it gets really mind-bending, because if the fish is the tomb, the Gospels give us a clue that the tomb is actually something else, something even more sacred. You have to pay super close attention to this detail in John's Gospel. For any Jewish person reading this in the first century, this specific description, 2 angels, one at the head, one at the feet of the burial slab, would have set off a huge alarm bell in their head. It's a very specific image. And boom, there it is. The layout of the empty tomb is a perfect mirror image of the Ark of the Covenant inside the Holy of Holies. You've got the stone slab where the sacrifice lay. That's the mercy seat on the Ark. And you have 2 guardians, one at each end. On the Ark, it was 2 golden cherubim. In the tomb, it's 2 angels. The message is unmistakable. The tomb has become the new Holy of Holies. So what's the big deal? Well, it means the tomb is no longer just a place of death and decay. It's the place where the ultimate sacrifice for sin, the ultimate atonement, is completed. And just like that big fish was a shelter, a refuge for Jonah, the tomb, this new Holy of Holies, becomes a place of ultimate protection for all of us.
Now, this might all seem like some really deep, ancient symbolism, but this whole chain of thought connects directly to Christian worship every single week. So let's just run through the whole chain one more time. The big fish is a shelter. The fish points to the tomb, which is also a shelter. The tomb is designed to look like the Holy of Holies, the place of atonement. All of these symbols ultimately point to Jesus himself as our true refuge. And the church? Well, the church is how we sacramentally step into that refuge.
Think about it. When Christians participate in the Lord's Supper, or communion, what are they doing? They're remembering Jesus' death. They are symbolically entering his tomb, which is our Holy of Holies, our place of refuge, our place of atonement. And trust me, this isn't some new, out-there idea. The early church totally understood this. It's why the fish is one of the earliest and most enduring symbols for Jesus. It's why some old church altars are literally shaped like coffins. It's why for centuries, Christians were buried inside their churches. They were being placed inside the communal tomb, inside the refuge.
But this refuge isn't about escaping the world forever. We enter the tomb, our weekly shelter, to find renewal and forgiveness. And then, just like Jonah, we are spat out again into the world, resurrected for another week of work, ready to get our hands dirty building the kingdom. So, next time you hear the story of Jonah, don't just see a man in a fish. See this incredible pattern that echoes from a prophet's prayer to an empty tomb to the most sacred place on earth and right into the life of the church today. And it leaves us with one final thought to wrestle with. If we enter this tomb for refuge each week, what does it really mean to come out alive?